As quoted by Benjamin Franklin, in 1736, I lost one of my sons, a fine boy of 4 years old, by the smallpox. I long regretted bitterly, and still regret that I had not given it to him by inoculation. This I mention for the sake of parents who omit that operation, on the supposition that they should never forgive themselves if a child died under it. My example showing that the regret may be the same way, and that, therefore, the safer should be chosen. According to the CDC, in a study that reflects on the impact vaccinations have had in reducing mortality and susceptibility over the last 20 years, the deaths of an estimated 732,000 children have been prevented, and approximately 21 million hospitalizations have been avoided due to high vaccination coverage during the VFC, or Vaccination for Children program, which spanned from 1994 to 2013. In fact, the reason for implementing such a program in the first place was due to an overwhelming number of hospitalizations and deaths from measles in 1993. It is worth noting that the MMWR vaccine was first released to the public in 1963 and was around for 30 years. But due to general distrust of vaccines, the majority of the population rejected the precautionary measure. Today, I will be discussing the importance of getting vaccinated every year and how vaccinations benefit the population. It is my hope to persuade my audience to consider avoiding vaccines that are critical to overall health and wellness and ultimately a long life. Having received my bachelor's degree in biology from UNC Chapel Hill and having attended countless science classes, I can tell you that the vaccination debate is always a popular topic of discussion. I have listened to both sides of the argument and am well informed of the reasons for either supporting or refuting the concept of vaccination. To help you visualize the potential consequences of not getting vaccinated, close your eyes for a moment and picture your daughter, who is now a senior in college, a child you've raised and protected in every way possible since the day she was born 22 years ago. She is at the top of her class and has worked hard to be on the honor roll list every semester. She has already started applying to jobs and preparing for graduation. One day, after mentioning several unusual symptoms she has been experiencing for the last 2 weeks, you encourage her to visit Campus Health. Then one day, not long after her doctor's appointment, she suddenly calls you, and you can tell by her voice that she is sobbing uncontrollably. Your jaw drops as she explains the call she received from her doctor just 5 minutes before she called you. Her test results indicate that she has cervical cancer caused by a severe case of HPV. You sit there and try not to think about the Gardasil vaccine her pediatrician recommended when Kara was just 11 years old. You sit there and try not to wonder if vaccinating Kara against HPV could have yielded a different outcome. Initially, I will discuss common misconceptions that encourage individuals to refuse vaccinations and why they are misleading. Then, I will provide evidence that refutes the popular belief that vaccines themselves are the root of sickness and infection. Finally, I will explain how vaccines not only benefit your personal health, but also those around you. There are a number of popular beliefs about vaccines which have no physical or statistical evidence. I will now illustrate 2 of them. Unfortunately, the history of vaccines has accumulated a number of inaccurate conclusions as to why one would ever opt out of getting vaccinated. One conclusion is that herd immunity will sufficiently protect the remainder of the population that does not believe in vaccines, when in reality epidemics can occur if the proportion of the population receiving vaccinations is too low. According to Cowan and Smith, herd immunity is defined as mass immunization that in turn provides indirect protection to unvaccinated individuals. Individuals who are still susceptible to the disease are shielded from the illness due to the vast majority being immunized, and, so to speak, dead ends with no possibility of transmitting the infection. However, it is important to note that this concept is only effective when the majority of the population is willing to receive the shot. If half the population is vaccinated while the other half refuses the shot, the density of individuals at risk for catching the sickness is entirely too high to be protected. Another common misconception is that vaccines are too costly and expensive for individuals to afford. According to Sawaya and Gessner in an article on acute otitis media, the release of the PVC-13 vaccine ultimately resulted in a $5.6 billion decrease in hospitalization bills in the U.S. Extensive statistical analyses indicate a direct correlation between this reduction and the number of AOM infections or incidents. In short, an estimated 10.8 million fewer incidents were noted in 2016 compared to 2011, which would account for why the amount of money spent on antimicrobial prescriptions and medical care was astonishingly low. Now, many individuals have developed the widespread assumption that getting vaccinated is the cause of the infection itself. Many opposed to vaccination believe that vaccines make you sick. According to Charlotte, what people mistake for getting sick are the mild symptoms such as developing a fever, nausea, inflammation at the injection site, or drowsiness. These symptoms are completely normal reactions to the vaccine and usually subside within a few days. They are in no way representative of the symptoms that you would normally experience if you actually caught the infection. Still others believe that receiving a vaccine for a specific disease is actually the true cause of that same disease and will infect you with it. This is not the case at all, as Charlotte explains that the measles vaccine, for instance, is what is known as a live but attenuated virus. This means that the vaccine contains a weakened form of the measles virus, which leads many to automatically jump to conclusions. It does sound weird, I will admit, letting someone inject a living virus into your body. However, this does not in any way insinuate that the virus actually attacks your immune system. While 5% of those who receive the MMR vaccine do develop a slight rash, this is the most serious side effect, and the rash disappears within a matter of days, which is much more desirable in comparison to measles. I think you'll agree. But most importantly is how getting vaccinated can keep the ones you love safe. Getting vaccinated is not only beneficial to your health and well-being, but also to those around you, such as coworkers, friends, and more importantly, your family. Vaccines provide personal protection by inducing a reaction within the body to confer future protection against an infection. It is a way to train your body to combat a particular disease without ever having been exposed to it. When your body comes into contact with that same disease in the future, your immune system immediately begins producing antibodies in mass amounts to fight off the infection. So even though you may have come into contact with a disease, you would never know it because you never experienced a reaction to it, because your body shut it down before it had a chance to react. Vaccines keep you from becoming sick and potentially passing on infection to those around you. This is especially important to consider with small children and elderly parents or grandparents. As a young adult, your body is able to respond relatively well to infection. However, this same infection, if passed on to one of your own children, could prove to be fatal. According to the website 10 Reasons to be Vaccinated, adults are responsible for the majority of whooping cough cases in young infants. I have now explained how common, inaccurate misconceptions can discourage individuals from getting vaccinated, how vaccines do not cause the same infection they are supposed to prevent, and why getting vaccinated is important to your health, but to also those around you. Vaccines are crucial to keeping the density of susceptible individuals in a population low and preventing the outbreak of an epidemic. Returning to the quote at the start of my speech, Benjamin Franklin acknowledges how vaccinating his son may still not have saved him from an early and untimely death. However, he really emphasizes the fact that the safer should be chosen to eliminate simply one more source of potential infection in his child. I'd like to end now with one more quote that similarly supports this same sentiment, this time from Bill Gates. I don't think there is any philosophy that suggests having polio is a good thing.